right, the alert this evening is that House Speaker John Boehner is basically fed up tonight. We heard the same sentiment basically from the president. Just hours ago, the speaker called off debt talks with the White House. He says the president wants to ultimately raise taxes, and he also claimed that the president was not serious when it came to it on the table about real spending cuts in entitlements. So today was the president's self-imposed deadline on this. He said it really had to be done by today in order to prevent a deeper economic disaster in this country. So now there's an emergency Saturday morning meeting that's going to take place tomorrow at 11 a.m. at the White House. Joining me now is David Drucker, a staff writer with Roll Call. Also working late night because this is a very big story. David, you know, I know a lot of things have been coming out since the president and John Boehner spoke earlier about where this may be headed. What are you hearing?
Well, both sides, both the Speaker's office and White House, were dueling in terms of the numbers and the framework and who was backing off of this and who was pushing for that. I think, although it may sound counterintuitive, the fact that the Speaker wants to take this to the congressional level, negotiate with Majority Leader Reid and other congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle, might in a sense help this because they can figure out together where the votes are, try and get something through each House of Congress and then get it to the president. And I feel like at this point, just about anything the president gets, he will sign. And although I originally thought it was best to have the president in the room because he could give the Democrats cover and sort of direct them as to where he wanted them to go, for whatever reason, it doesn't appear to have worked. And you might as well do it now and not have a middleman in between who's going to vote for what.
That's really interesting because when you think about it, David, the knock against the president in a lot of these negotiations, really since the beginning of his presidency, was that he wasn't willing to take a leadership role to get in the room. When you think about health care and, you know, the stimulus package and the like, he sort of designated that to Congress and allowed them to come up with the numbers. So now in this situation, he got in the room and was not able to get any kind of deal. And he thought he had it, it sounds like. It sounds like they thought they had a deal yesterday.
Well, it does, and to give the president some slack here, I think what he did was work out with Speaker Boehner the framework of something he thought might work. When he went back to Democrats in Congress and said, here's what I have, what do you think, there was a bit of an uproar. And we knew this yesterday at Capitol Hill. Democrats were very upset. They were meeting in a caucus lunch, and there was a line from the White House with some staff members that went on a conference call and assured them that certain things were not being done, that were supposedly being done. I'm sure you remember the breaking news about the supposed deal that was being reported. Right. And so he was in a really tough position because Democrats in Congress have no more interest in compromising certain things than do Republicans. And to broker this is difficult, and that's why I think at this point you're better off with Speaker Boehner and Majority Leader Reid in the room. They're very good at putting together the pieces of the puzzle that are required for their members to be able to vote for something. Well, doing congressional deals is very difficult work.
We just spoke to two senators who basically say they wish that they'd done that all along. They felt like they were left out of the conversation, which, you know, you hear from time to time on these issues when it gets into a small group in a room trying to hammer this out. But I'm fascinated by what you said moments ago because the president, we heard the president stand up and basically say, you know, John Boehner went back to his folks and, gee, I guess underestimated his ability to sell this deal with his own people because it doesn't seem like he could do it. And what you're saying is that the opposite happened, that the president went back to Democrats. Sounds like was an $800 billion revenue hike, and they said you're not getting enough from, you know, the wealthiest in this country and the corporate jet owners and all that we've heard about, because then we came back apparently $400 billion more in increased taxes for that group, and that was the deal breaker. Have I got that right, or does your reporting tell you differently?
What I'm saying, it's unclear. If you listen to the Speaker's office, what they're saying is, yeah, the deal was around $800 in revenue that would be scored strictly from economic growth, not from raising taxes. The Democrats were unhappy with that, so the president came back with another $400 billion in revenue, which would have pushed it to at least $1.2 trillion as opposed to a ceiling of $800 billion. And so it just depends on who you believe. And look, the Speaker may have had just as much trouble selling a deal as the president. I think part of the reason here, Martha, is that neither side has political capital. The economy's rough, people are out of work, and nobody really trusts their leaders to get them anything that's good, that's going to stick. Republicans weren't out of power for that long. They're now back in power, and they're still smarting from when they were running things and never did things the way they thought they should from a conservative point of view. And Democrats simply care as much about their priorities as Republicans do about theirs. And so it's a tough position. It's like trying to sell a house, and you don't have a willing buyer or a willing seller, yet you put them in a room and you say, work it out.
Yeah. And they both got up and walked out, it sounds like, essentially, in the end. David Drucker, thank you very much. We'll be following your reporting on this throughout what's going to be a pretty busy weekend and coming days. Thanks, David.
Thanks, Martha.
All right.